Good evening on the West Coast. Good evening in the mountain. Good evening in the central. Good evening on the East Coast. You know exactly who it is, family. Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest on the Reparations perspective. Bringing you those ADOCS hot topics and making the case for reparations, making the case for weaponizing our vote and socializing our suffering. And this evening, family, this is your evening wake-up call, your anti-Black racism report, your as the world of ADOCS turns. Oh, we family, it's getting kind of hectic. I see you, Brian C. Johnson, Robin Felix, and for those of you who have yet to chat, where you're swinging for ADOCS, welcome to the live. As you all know, what's up, Antoine Foster? I see you, family. Listen, my apologies for being 11 minutes late. Lord, y'all know the movement is moving. They can't get this Juneteenth festival, this Juneteenth national holiday over as symbolism in lieu of what we were truly demanding, okay? We were demanding reparations in the trillions over multi-generations. These Democrats and Republicans alike think they are slick. We are not falling for the puckery. We ain't falling for the trickery. We are doing what, family? Leaning in. Shout out to ADOCS, FBA, B1, BF1. I forgot who you are. You know, sons and daughters of freedmen. Welcome one and all to the live. Listen here. I just got off a call because we are putting up a secure gate. Shout out to those of you who stopped everything you were doing to hang out for an hour or more so you can support the AB 105. Down here, we are fighting for our own ethnicity. We are unflattening Blackness. We are getting out from under minority and people of color, because these are beards and smoke screens, but we ain't doing shite for ADOCS. And we are now insisting on our own ethnicity bill, and we just got a big one passed. Yes, my family, when I rang the alarm, sent the scripts all through Facebook over in my text, you guys showed up and showed out. And it was a victory for us. We are looking to be identified here in the state of California as Black American descendants of U.S. chattel slavery. Remember, family, the chattel is the justice claim, okay? The chattel is the justice claim. I know we go by a bazillion other names, but I've always stood on chattel as the justice claim. I like to keep it in white folks' face that they treated my ancestors, our ancestors, less than animals. I've seen them be more concerned. Let me stop sharing. That thing is just jumping off. I've seen them more concerned over a dog's life than that I've seen them concerned over the life of ADOCS. So this is your Ida B. Wells 2.0 anti-Black racism report. You know, me and my inner Christ, we kind of meditate on what we gonna roll with for the day. I watch everything. Shout out to the new Black media. I watch everything to determine what I'm going to bring to you. What's sticking in my craw the toughest? That's what you end up getting at 6 o'clock. Okay? It is what it is. All right, family. So let's dig in. I don't want to waste your time. I try to get you in and out in an hour. I do my best. So let's just start off with this before we jump into the colored gatekeepers of white supremacy. Attorney General Keith Ellison is it. And while I'm at it, I'm going to touch on Kamala Harris and her puckery where the estate of Nina Simone is concerned. Yes, you know, Skabama, Skamala, Kabama, whatever. It's all a shit show where she's concerned, right? So we're going to, since we're talking about the colored gatekeepers of white supremacy, let me just add one more tonight. Let me just add Kabama. Let's start with this anti-Black racism report. 5 officers fired over a man's hanging death in custody. Which some of these glacier donkeys had the unmitigated gall to mock in a meme. Let's get into it. 5 police officers in Savannah, Georgia have been fired following the death of a man who committed suicide in their custody in early April, a notably swift step in disciplining officers for misconduct. He did not commit suicide with his shoestrings in the interrogation room. That's the lie they want you to believe while the cameras were off. Let's dig in. The Savannah Police Department announced on Monday that investigations into the details leading up to and after the in-custody hanging death of 60-year-old William Zachary Harvey led to the firings of a corporal and a sergeant for failing to turn on recording cameras and violating supervisor responsibilities. Me speaking. They weren't fired for annihilating that brother and lying that he hung himself in the interrogation room with his own shoelaces. They were fired because they forgot to turn on the camera, which means these white inferior glacier donkey race soldiers are going to be hired in the neighboring city. That's all. They simply forgot to turn the camera on because they were off so they could execute him, so they could hang him, so they could lynch him. But the Asians have protections. And we still have an anti-lynch bill that is yet to be made into law by the executive pen. That's something that Jim Crow Joe needs for the Republicans and the Democrats to decide on after 100 years and counting. Moving on. A second investigation by the Professional Standards Unit looked into a group chat message with a meme mocking Harvey's death, resulting in the firings of 3 other officers based on multiple violations. Excuse me. They were fired not because they executed Mr. Harvey, because the lie they told as the cameras were off was that he took off his shoelaces. He took his shoelaces from his shoes and hung himself with his shoestrings. They weren't fired for that. No. They were fired, these 3, for a group chat message with a meme mocking Harvey's death. I've already told you guys, February 20, FBI 2016 report said these KKK, the skinheads, and the neo-Nazis have infiltrated the police departments all throughout the country. And the police departments that hire them are more concerned about their First Amendment rights to affiliate with hate groups than to call them domestic terrorists and give a damn about Black life. Anywho, moving on. The terminations are among the most prompt disciplinary actions taken in recent months after a summer filled with protests against police brutality, racism, and injustice, where cries for correctional measures for police took longer to lead to action. Excuse me. This was swift. This was in early April. And this is swift. Okay, moving on. Harvey family attorney Francis Johnson said in an interview with the Washington Post that the speed with which the officers were fired and denied their appeals for the terminations is notable, but the family still deserves more justice. Quote, our next step is to hold the officers responsible for their criminal negligence and to hold the city responsible, he said. It's not just the matter of Harvey committed suicide. It's about if the city was deliberately indifferent to his condition in custody. Do you believe, put it in the chat, that this man committed suicide in the interrogation room with his own shoestrings? Mayor Van R. Johnson II said in a statement that he is devastated. Oh, he's devastated that Harvey died while under the control of the Savannah Police Department, and stated that he believes the officers' terminations were appropriate given the fatal outcomes of their actions 3 months later. Okay, 2. While we cannot provide justice for the Harvey family, we can assure accountability for the policies we did not follow and the actions we did not take. He said, I do not believe that there was malicious intent on the part of the officers involved, but the results were deadly. And we can't see it because the cameras were off. The puckering. Police Chief Roy W. Minter Jr. said in the Tuesday news conference that he believed Harvey's death could have been prevented if officers had followed policies and procedures, and that the officers who shared the meme embarrassed the department. Quote, "Our hopes and our praise the Harvey family finds some type of comfort knowing that the Savannah Police Department did what he had to do to hold members of our organization accountable," he said, stressing that he also didn't believe the officers had malicious intent. Harvey was in custody in connection to an aggravated assault investigation, according to police. Johnson said that the Georgia Bureau of Investigations has recorded statements from an officer through her body camera that show Harvey was in an unstable condition the night of his death. Me speaking, but he was able to take care of his mother. That was her lifeline. He gave her prescriptions and the whole 9 yards. Let me find that video. Instead of taking him to a hospital, they chained him to a wall with 2 police officers standing outside. So, he's chained to a wall, 2 officers outside, but he managed to undo his shoelaces and hang himself. Where do I go from there? Let me read on before I curse like a banshee and get banned. Okay. We think that's a deliberate indifference to his condition and rises to the level of negligence. Is that all? I call it execution. It is believed that Harvey loosened one of his shoestrings or another object in his possession with a free arm and hanged himself, Johnson said. So you're able with only one free arm to loosen your shoestring to hang yourself. Mr. Harvey probably looks like he may have weighed about 130, 40 pounds, maybe. He's chained to the wall. He's got a free hand. He's going to unlace his shoes, tie the shoestring around his neck, hang it while chained to the wall. I'm trying to figure this out, y'all. I'm really trying. I'm trying to can with y'all, but I just can fucking not. Let me take a sip. Officers tried to save Harvey's life once he was found, but he ultimately died of his injuries, according to police. The Glacier Donkey race soldiers noted that it was standard procedure for the GBI to conduct an investigation for an in-custody death, but Johnson says the case has had a rocky start. Harvey's body was given back to his family in pieces following an autopsy with little explanation about how he went into custody alive and came out dead, given that he was chained to a wall and got his shoelaces free and being notified about his death also took longer than expected, eroding their confidence in authorities. Shirley Harvey Francis, Harvey's mother, said in a Monday news conference that justice will be difficult to obtain. The Savannah Morning News wrote that Harvey was his mother's only son and main caregiver. But he had mental issues. As far as I'm concerned, I will never have justice until I see my son again, she said through tears. Corporal Silver Luschner and Sergeant Michael Kerr were fired shortly after Harvey's death for violations concerning video and audio equipment and oath of office ethics. The family has requested surveillance video of the interrogation room, but Johnson said the officers never turned on the video. Can't see that. The meme making light of Harvey's death in a group chat was another blow for the family, according to Johnson. There's nothing humorous about hanging. Death by hanging, especially for Black people in the South and in Savannah, especially a hanging in our own department, he said. Sergeant Christopher Hewitt, Corporal Erica Tremblay, and Officer David Curtis were all terminated following the department's investigation into the meme. Where are my gun clubs at? It's unclear if all fired officers have retained legal representation. Johnson said Harvey's family is attending grief counseling and is trying to cope with Harvey's death each passing day. He said he remains cautious about how to pursue justice in the months ahead. While firing the officers is a positive step, it is often paradoxically used as a way to minimize a municipality's exposure under these cases. Of course it is. Johnson said, it is our hope our city will not hide behind qualified immunity and fail to dignify actions of these officers. This is what Kuhn Clyburn said that the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act can do without. We can get that passed without ending qualified immunity. The colored gatekeepers of white supremacy. Let me see what you have to say about it before I move to Keith. Brian says, we don't get tangibles, we get a federal Juneteenth holiday that's already been co-opted through a Pan-African and LGBTQ XYZ narrative. Absolutely, Brian. The Japanese, Jews, and Indians got hard cold cash, while we get a federal holiday that they're going to commercialize akin to what they do for July 4th and the rest, and so on and so forth. That was not the demand. That was not the demand. People tend to believe that, hey, now that we have a federal holiday, they have to pay reparations. Don't let this federal holiday lull you to sleep, people. Don't let it do it. Lean the puck in. We are at George Floyd, 9 minutes, 29 seconds to the neck, and the puckery is thick. I mean, I just read you how the beat goes on with executing our Black men, women, and children. I mean, seriously, Mr. Harvey was in an interrogation room, lost his life, family. We are officially at war. We've been at war for a long time. 400 plus years is our ongoing war and Holocaust in this country. You don't see the ethnic cleansing happening? I do. Let's go to the next comments. What's up, Trey X? I see you, family. This is a lot of speculation about his manner of death, given they had no cameras on due to their negligence. Maybe he was related to Mrs. Incredible to be able to do all of this, says Brian. Trey says, but yet Congress is still holding the anti-lynching bill as they passed for Asian protections 94-1. And as they passed this pretty much unanimously, I hear 14 senators, Republicans, were against it, but they got that passed. But no anti-lynch law for ADOCS. During our 400 plus year Holocaust, family, when you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Read between the lines. Next up, let's talk about Kamala Kabama. Let's do that one first. And then I'll get it to Keith, because that's going to take a little minute. So, talking about your color gatekeepers of white supremacy, Nina Simone's granddaughter accuses Kamala of bullying her mother to the point of near suicide. Singer Nina Simone's granddaughter accused VP Kamala Harris of bullying her mother to the point that she almost committed suicide when Harris was serving as California's AG. Quote, as I said before, ask her why she separated my family, Simone's granddaughter, Rihanna Simone Kelly, said of Harris on Twitter. Ask her why my grandmother's estate is in shambles now. Ask her why we as her family no longer own the rights to anything. Ask her why she bullied my mother in court and my mom almost killed herself from the depression. Simone Kelly's remarks came in response to a Twitter user questioning the need for Nina Simone's estate to maintain a social media presence, which the younger Simone said was out of the family's control. Nina's granddaughter here, my family doesn't run her estate anymore. It was taken away from us and given to white people. You know, the Glacier Donkeys. Our family name was dragged in the media. We got no royalties, nothing. Want to hold someone accountable? Ask Kamala Harris why she came from my family, Simone Kelly said. This is what they've done to all of our intellectual property. This is what they've done to all of our Black Wall Streets. As they sit up here and try to tell us what our reparations should look like, beyond the cash in the trillions over multi-generations. They don't want us to recreate Black Wall Street. They don't want us to be able to leave inheritable generational wealth to our children. While you guys, not my woke ones, run around here voting blue no matter damn who to your own people's peril. Scary. Chucks and pearls, you know it. That's what 87% of our electorate went out here and did. After we told y'all in the reparationist movement all of the puckery surrounding and concerning Scamala. Simone Kelly was referring to a 2016 settlement regarding the Nina Simone Charitable Trust, which references Harris multiple times due to her primary responsibility for supervising charitable trusts in California in her role as Attorney General. I wonder who she's going to blame this on. She's great for that. You can catch her laughing like a hyena when it came to locking up mothers whose children were truant to school because of illnesses, or in some cases, the mother's working 2 and 3 gig jobs and couldn't get the kids to school on time. She chuckles and got a real hyena tickle out of doing that. She weaponized what the race soldiers and glacier donkeys did to Mitrice Richardson. Look it up. It's in the archives. When they freed her at 2 a.m. to her own devices with no cell phone, no shoes, no nothing. She was murdered in the Malibu Hills. They did that after telling her mom that they would hold her overnight so her mother wouldn't have to drive all the way down like South Central to Malibu at night where it's extremely dark. She could have risked an accident. They said they would hold her after she had a bipolar episode at one of the Malibu restaurants, and her grandmother offered to pay for her meal. And they took her to jail, and she turned up dead. And Scabama told Mr. Richardson, as she was running for the Senate seat, that she would open up an investigation to see if there was grounds to bring the Glacier Donkey race soldiers to accountability through indictments. So Black folks rushed to the polls to vote for Scabama, thought she was going to finally meet a race soldier that she could prosecute. Okay. She wins the Senate seat with the Black vote and tells Mr. Richardson there's nothing to see here. It's like when she was AG and told the governor, who said, listen, our jails are overcrowded. Can we let some of these nonviolent offenders out? She said, no, I need them to put out fires in the white hills of the white homes for $1 a freaking day. That not so new slavery in the private prison industrial complex. And this is why I believe the Simones. This is standard Skabama. The Attorney General asserts that Lisa Simone Kelly breached her fiduciary duty to the estate and to the charitable trust and wrongfully diverted estate assets. The Attorney General seeks to surcharge Kelly for amounts totaling $5,937,749.42 plus over $2.5 million in interest. So Skabama hung the daughter of the late great Nina Simone with her own charitable trust estate money bequeathed to her by her mother to oversee. Which the AG contends is far more than one half of the estate's value during Lisa Simone Kelly's administration of the estate, the settlement reads. Simone Kelly contends that there is a lot of slander reported about her mother. I believe her, encouraging followers to do your research on the case. I'm going to leave it at that for now. Do your research if you like, but know that there is a lot of slander out there on my mother. There was a lot of false information put out there that is not true. Listen, we lived it. We are still living in the aftermath of this, she said. Simone Kelly concluded by encouraging others to ask Harris why she chose a Nina Simone song at the inauguration as she was getting sworn in as vice president, speculating that the choice was not an accident. Getting paid. Oh, wait. While we're asking Kabama questions, ask her why, after all of this pain and suffering she put us through, a Nina Simone song was sang at the inauguration to swear her in as VP. She knew what she was doing, Simone Kelly said. One colored gatekeeper of white supremacy down, one more to puck and go. So I had up for you, hold on, how now Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison says the judge should not make an example of Derek Chauvin when he sentences him on Friday because this is not about revenge. I'm going to have to breathe. This was a 60-minute interview that this Mickey Thicky had. Now, I want to show you first, before I jump into that article, you need to hear it from the horse's mouth. Welcome to the live, one and all. Please like, share, subscribe. God knows I need somebody to produce the show. I keep forgetting to wave my banner. Like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications, and thank you so much for your contributions to my voice in the new Black media. I greatly appreciate your support. Now, I want to share with you a video of this Mickey Thicky on The View. And then we'll get into his more recent puckery. This was back in May, I think. Hold on. Yeah, after the verdict. Hold on. Let's cue it up. Let me make sure it's bigger than me.
60 Minutes last night, Minnesota AG Keith Ellison had some surprising takes on Derek Chauvin being found guilty of murdering George Floyd. Take a look.
I spent 16 years as a criminal defense lawyer, so I will admit I felt a little bad for the defendant. I think he deserved to be convicted, but he's a human being.
Was this a hate crime?
I wouldn't call it that, because hate crimes are crimes where there's an explicit motive and of bias. We don't have any evidence that Derek Chauvin factored in George Floyd's race as he did what he did.
So here you have this Mickey Ficky, not even wanting to refer to this as the hate crime that it was. I have shared with you guys in archives as I was following the whole entire trial. There's a whole series in the archives, look it up, that Chauvin had attempted the kill choke on 8 of 22 occasions. He was practicing the kill choke until he finally executed on it. This Mickey Ficky wants to sit up here. This former, he sold papers for the Nation of Islam. This former Muslim of the nation sits up here and has to think and pontificate as to how this was not a hate crime. He had to sit up here and show empathy for a glacier donkey that was in defense of his execution of Mr. George Floyd with a very smug look on his face as he looked like he was playing with his ding-a-ling, getting great satisfaction from the tension of the bystanders, the incessant cries of the bystanders to get up off his neck. And you want to sit up here and talk about this inhumane man, humanity, and how as someone who used to be a defendant, you feel a defense attorney, you feel sorry, you feel a little bad for the defendant. These are your colored gatekeepers of white supremacy. And I know y'all like for me to get up off the necks of these colored gatekeepers, but this doesn't change until we expose them and bring them out. All of us in the new black media are talking about it, as we should be talking about it. He executed Mr. George Floyd because of qualified immunity, because, like I said, the FBI 2016 report says these domestic terrorists are being hired throughout the country to protect their First Amendment right for gainful employment, even though they affiliate with domestic terrorist groups that have yet to be labeled domestic terrorists, as they call people like me and those in the new black media, whom they're shadow banning, whom they're disabling every opportunity they get, trying to make it impossible for our voices to be heard, censoring everything that comes out of our mouths. We are called Black identity extremists, and we have yet to call the KKK within the government and the police departments alike the domestic terrorists they are. Why are their First Amendment rights for gainful employment while identifying and associating with hate groups take precedent over Black lives? As y'all want to sit up here and try to deceive the country and the world like you give a damn about all lives, when you know full well Black lives are excluded in your concept of all lives even mattering. How is it that we build all the wealth in this country that these Mickey Fickies eat from? And we're in the fight for our very lives, for our very existence. How is that? It's unconscionable. So he does that nonsense back when. And then the more recent puckery was what I just shared with you. He is literally dog whistling. This sentence goes down on Friday. And this Mickey Ficky is sending a dog whistle to the judge as the Attorney General of Minnesota, where the puckery bigotry goes down on a regular. It didn't stop with Mr. Floyd. He is sitting up here and intimating that the judge should take it easy when we're trying to get 40 years on this Mickey Ficky. This Mickey Ficky don't even deserve to live. He's a savage. He is a beast. He is a glacier donkey. Mr. George Floyd was the human in the equation. And this is who we have to be mindful of, family. We've got to be careful of these educated professional lanes who care more about their butter biscuits than the proper sentencing of these type of white, inferior, glacier donkey race soldiers. You see? All skin folk ain't kin folk. You go from selling papers for the Nation of Islam. You go from being a Muslim to this for butter biscuits for the come up at the expense of ADOCS life. How dare you spit on the grave of Mr. George Floyd in the way you just have by intimating this Mickey Ficky should get less than death. But death would even be too good for this Mickey Ficky. He deserves the maximum. He deserves the maximum sentence for every conviction, strung together for several lifetimes. And I'm sure the nation and the world would agree with me more than they agree with this bootlick of a coon. Let's talk about it. Representative Keith Ellison faces renewed scrutiny over past ties to Nation of Islam, defense of anti-Semitic figures. Representative and his defense of his anti-Semitic leader, Louis Farrakhan, are resurfacing as he campaigns to lead the DNC. Ellison, the first Muslim elected to Congress, publicly renounced his association with the Nation of Islam in 2006, after it became an issue during his run for Congress, when local Republican bloggers began publishing his old law school columns and photos connecting him to the organization. Quote, I have long since distanced myself from and rejected the Nation of Islam due to his propagation of bigoted and anti-Semitic ideas and statements, as well as other issues, Ellison wrote at the time. Sounds like Barack Obama, doesn't it, family? Who threw the very Reverend Wright under the bus to win the highest office in the land and to go in there and to do his white mama side bidding. You know, the very white mama that descends from slave owners. We woke now. But several outlets have resurfaced Ellison's past writings as he runs for DNC chair, raising new concerns about his own views and what they would mean for the Democratic Party if he were to be its leader. Let's jump to a CNN K-File review of Ellison's past writings and public statements during the late 80s through the 90s reveal his decade-long involvement in the Nation of Islam and his repeated defense of Farrakhan and other radical black leaders against accusations of anti-Semitism in columns and statements to the press. None of the records reviewed found examples of Ellison making any anti-Semitic comments himself. In one scathing column from 1990, unearthed by CNN's K-File, Ellison accused the university's president of chilling the free expression of black students by openly criticizing a controversial speaker invited to speak on campus by the Africana Student Cultural Center. That speaker, Kwame Ture, also known as Stokely Carmichael, had publicly claimed that Zionists had collaborated with the Nazis in WW2 and has been quoted as saying Zionism must be destroyed. University of Minnesota President Niels Hasselmo said he personally found the statements in Touré's speech concerning alleged Zionist collaboration with the Nazis deeply offensive. Ellison, writing under the name Keith E. Hakeem for the Minnesota Daily, the student newspaper at the University of Minnesota, where Ellison attended law school, argued that Hasselmo denounced Touré's comment without offering any factual refutation of it, and defended Touré's right to speak on campus and to question Zionism. Ellison wrote concerning Zionism in Touré's speech, the ASCC's position is simply this: whether one supports or opposes the establishment of Israel and Palestine and Israel's present policies, Zionism, the ideological undergirding of Israel, is a debatable political philosophy. Anyone, including Black people, has the right to hear and voice alternative views on the subject, notwithstanding our nominal citizenship. He added, alternatively, the university's position appears to be this: political Zionism is off limits no matter what dubious circumstances Israel was founded under, no matter what the Zionists do to the Palestinians, and no matter what wicked regimes Israel allies itself with, like South Africa. This position is untenable. Okay, so you get the idea. Ellison, I'm going to jump to this. Ellison wrote other columns in law school defending Farrakhan against charges of racism and arguing for reparations for slavery. A spokesperson for Ellison told CNN that Ellison rejects all forms of anti-Semitism and said the right wing has been pushing these stories for years to drive a wedge between Congressman Ellison and the Jewish community. Since announcing his candidacy for the DNC chair, Jewish groups like the Anti-Defamation League, we need an anti-ADOCS defamation league, okay, and J Street have come to Ellison's defense on his past associations and writings. Ellison's involvement with the Nation of Islam would continue after he graduated from law school in 1990. Ellison helped organize the Minnesota delegation to the 1995 Million Man March, which was led by Farrakhan. The Star Tribune reported at the time that Ellison spoke ahead of the controversial Khalil Abdul Muhammad, who was kicked out of the Nation of Islam by Farrakhan 2 years earlier for making blatantly anti-Semitic comments at the University of Minnesota in efforts to raise funds for the Million Man March. According to the Star Tribune report, Muhammad's speech at the university was racist, anti-Semitic, and homophobic. Ellison's spokesperson noted to CNN that President Obama, Stevie Wonder, Maya Angelou, and many others also attended the march, and said he had no additional involvement with march organizer Louis Farrakhan or his organizers, has long since denounced him and rejects all forms of anti-Semitism. Ellison continued to defend Farrakhan against accusations of anti-Semitism throughout the 90s. Minister Farrakhan is a role model for Black youth, wrote Ellison in an Insight News op-ed in 95. He is not an anti-Semite. When the then executive director of the Minneapolis Initiative Against Racism, Joanne Jackson, came under fire in 97 for allegedly saying during a forum that Jews are the most racist white people she knows, and that she did not think Farrakhan was a racist, Ellison, who identified by his religious name of Keith Ellison Muhammad, defended her, saying she is correct about Minister Farrakhan. He is not racist. He also is not an anti-Semite. Ellison would later address this incident in 2006, writing in a letter to local Jewish group, while some at that meeting justified her comments, I spoke out in favor of increased dialogue between the Jewish and African American communities. I believe that Ms. Jackson's alleged remarks were clearly bigoted, discriminatory story, inappropriate, and even ridiculous. Look at how the tides turn quickly for them butter biscuits, baby. These are your color gatekeepers of white supremacy. I want to jump to the Nation of Islam. Calls former ally Keith Ellison a hypocrite. Hold on, family. Hold on, family. Would-be Democratic National Committee Chairman, U.S. Representative Keith Ellison, has been catching hell from conservatives and enemies within his own party for his past ties to Southside firebrand Louis Farrakhan. Now the Nation of Islam itself is piling on, accusing Ellison of being a hypocrite and seeking to embarrass him for what is called his cowardly and baseless repudiation of the controversial Southside-based religious leader he once supported and who once infamously called Judaism a gutter religion. The first Muslim elected to Congress, Ellison, who hails from Minnesota, was an early supporter of Senator Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign and one of the first senior Democrats to take Donald Trump's candidacy seriously, qualifications cited by supporters in the Democratic Party who would like to install him as their leader. Now, these articles are a little dated, but I want to show you the turncoat of the colored gatekeepers of white supremacy. I need you to understand the breadth and depth of how far they will go to sell out their people for the butter biscuits. You need to know, and we need to expose them so we can weaponize our votes and socialize our suffering. Red top of the ticket, blue Congress, until they cut the checks in the trillions over multi-generations. Third parties are a waste of time. They will never gain enough money, nor enough momentum, nor enough power. The power is between the Democrats and the Republicans, and we need to shut it down until we can replace the lanes in office with full-chested cash reparationists like Tamara Johnson-Shealy, who is running against Raphael Warnock. Be sure to support that sister in her efforts this time around. We need her in Congress, and we need 100 more just like her. But Ellison's status as a frontrunner last week came under threat after CNN revived articles Ellison wrote in praise of Farrakhan while Ellison was a grad student 20 years ago and found footage of him appearing to criticize Israel. That prompted Hillary Clinton's biggest donor, Haim Saban, to on Friday call Ellison an anti-Semite. This is what happens when you straddle the fence, especially when you're straddling the fence as the face of white supremacy, the black white supremacist. And on Wednesday, an editorial published in the Nation of Islam's House organ, The Final Call, which Ellison used to sell, quotes at length from articles Ellison wrote in the 90s in which he praised Farrakhan as a sincere, tireless, and uncompromising advocate of the black community and other oppressed peoples in America and around the world, and wrote that Farrakhan is not an anti-Semite. Illustrated with a photo of what The Final Call says is Ellison hawking copies of the Nation's paper while at the University of Minnesota. That's what I told y'all. The editorial by editor Richard B. Muhammad noted that Ellison went by the last name Ellison Muhammad at the time, and it helped organize a Minnesota delegation of Farrakhan's Million Man March. So if Mr. Ellison once believed those things about the minister and changed his mind, that's his business, Muhammad wrote. We will leave Allah, God, to judge and handle the hypocrites. Ellison, who repudiated Farrakhan as an anti-Semite when he ran for Congress in 2006, did not comment Wednesday, but last week wrote that he was a supporter of Israel, who was coming under attack from right-wing interests who were trying to drive a wedge between long-standing allies in the fight for equal rights. Beyond retweeting The Final Call editorial, Farrakhan has so far stayed above the fray, speaking instead in recent days about his push for shoppers to boycott Christmas and praising the late Cuban leader Fidel Castro as a deeply committed spiritual man. So there you have it. There you have it, family. I'm going to come over and see what you have to say about it before I pray us out. We're at 7 o'clock. Trey X says, but yet Congress is still holding the anti-lynch bill. Yes. Brian says, this is straight up babble from the AG. Again, the white offender must always be the victim. True statement, family. I want to thank you so much for joining the live. Thank you so much. I'll be back tomorrow, 6 p.m. Wednesday, I have more advocacy work to do. I'm going to try to speak with Be the Power about organizing what they successfully pulled off in a reparations rally on the steps of the Georgia Capitol. We need to do this annually, the Friday before Juneteenth or close to Juneteenth, whatever day it falls on. We don't want to impede on the festivals, but we do want to be able to go to our state's capitals or wherever we are and stage reparations rally. I think that was a grand idea, and it was so effective. That's where Tamara Johnson-Shealy rolled out her candidacy. It was fire. It was rich. Okay? So perhaps you guys absolutely know this. If I don't do Wednesday, the goal is to try to do a Friday show. I try to get it at least 4 days a week is my goal. And like I said, it's hard to hold me to a time because I'm advocating as well. Okay, family? So with that said, I want to thank you so much for joining the live, for liking, sharing, subscribing, turning on your notifications. Thank you for your contributions to the show. Until tomorrow, family, know that the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever ADOCS and its allies are, God truly is, because, family, you are the face of God. You are the voice of God. You are the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. Until tomorrow, family, you make it a beautiful, God-inspired rest of your evening, and know that I love you black. I love you strong. Peace.